Hey guys, my name is Jordan. I go by Hook'emHorn7 on Whatifsports.com. As promised, I'm going to create or show you guys a quick recruiting overview for Gridiron Dynasty within Whatifsports.com. I unfortunately don't have a D3 team to show you guys exactly what it's going to look like, so I'm going to be using my D2 team for the most part. They're pretty similar when it comes to the basic hitting recruits, scouting, all of that thing. As you move up, the number of players decreases, recruiting becomes more difficult, and player rating values increase, things like that. So let's get started. I'll show you a couple of places to get some valuable information. First place is when you're on your team homepage under the Help tab here on the right, and then if you go to the FAQ option, and then these links up here in the top right that are in yellow, if you go to Recruiting, there's a bunch of questions and answers here for you that you can read over if you have any of those questions or just get helpful information. What I'm going to show you for this particular video is this here. What this has is it just tells you the base amount of funds you're going to receive per open scholarship. So at D3 you're going to get 3,000, D2 you're going to get 6,000 per scholarship, D1AA you're going to get 10,000 per scholarship, and D1AA is 15. So at D3 if you had 10 scholarships you would get 3,000 per 10. For each of those 10 scholarships you would start with a base of 30,000. One other thing I wanted to show you real quick is if you go back to the top of those links on the FAQ, there is postseason. What it has here is it will tell you for D1A what the amount of funds you're going to get for each level of bowl. At D1, and the rest of the levels is going to show you what you're going to get per each round of playoffs that you advance for each level. A couple things to note: to have collected this postseason additional funds, you had to have been at your team the prior year. And these funds are distributed amongst all 12 teams within your conference, regardless of if they're sim or human controlled teams. If sim or human controlled teams advance in playoffs or make bowls, everybody still gets credit for it. One side note on that as well is sim AI controlled teams recruit different than us. Than human controlled teams, they do not actually have money. They have unlimited assets and recruit the entire recruiting period, so they're always going. But they do not scout additional players. So when recruiting starts, they will have scouted so many X number of players, and they will not scout new guys as they are knocked off of the other players. They will just reallocate their assets to the remaining battles that they have. One other thing I wanted to show you at the top is also under Help, under Player's Guide. If you, again, links at the top right, click Recruiting, and scroll down a little bit, it will show you what everything costs when you're trying to put recruiting effort into players. If it's just got a straight up cost, that's a baseline price. It does not change. If it's got a range, it changes based on the recruit's distance from you. I'm going to quick hop over to my D1 team just to show you what it looks like when you're initially setting up your recruiting board. When you do that, you'll go to Recruiting and Search. And then if you want to search by any position, I will show you that momentarily. But when you're initially scouting for players, on the left side, they will have blue check marks if they are not on your board, and it will be white when they are on your board. And simply to add someone to your recruiting board, you will click the blue check mark, and it will add that person to your recruiting board. Now what I mean when I'm saying recruiting board is if you click the recruiting tab here or recruiting in summary, it'll take you to your board. And this is any player that you have scouted. If you've targeted or have done any recruiting effort into him, he will show up on this board. A couple things to note on here is you can prioritize players based on however you would like to do that. There is a role rating feature for all of the players. I touched on that in my Gridiron Dynasty overview video. So if you haven't seen that, that would also be a great one to watch for to give you some basic help. And as you can see over here, it talks about, I guess, kind of a player's status. So these guys are undecided, which means they're not looking at any schools. Red dot or considering others means they are looking at other schools, not including me. There's a yellow dot, which is considering us among others, and that means I am in the running with other schools. And there is a green dot, which is considering us, which means I am the only school that that player is considering. If you change priorities here with any of these, at the very bottom, you can just simply save priorities. If you put a check mark here to the left, you can remove selected, that kind of thing. To search for recruits and add them to your board, you will go to recruiting and search. You will search for the position that you're wanting, or you can do all. If you do position rank, it really only applies to D1 and D1 AA, so I won't use that here. Projected level, it defaults to your current level, and that is because you can only recruit players at your level. You cannot recruit players above your level. You could recruit down, but I don't see how that would be advantageous. You can then sort by distance from your school. You can sort by the rating, the role rating for each player. You can search for strictly undecided players or unsigned players. What that just basically means is it will be unsigned players will be anyone that's available. You can also do signed if you really choose to. That would just be anybody that's already committed to a school. And then these are what you'll use most of the time when searching for recruits. You can put values in here, here, or any of these 6 boxes. So for me, I'm going to look at linebackers. I'm going to put 2 core values that are important to me and to linebackers, so tackling and strength. And I'm also going to put one in here just to show you how this works, and a speed with a rating of 30. Also on these bottom 6, they have this greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, or equal to. If you want to use those, I always use the greater than or equal to. That's saying that 30 is my absolute minimum for speed that they will go for this particular example. You can also change the number of max results that you'll produce. It does do 50 per page, so you can do it however you want. Once you have whatever you're going to search for recruits or however you're going to search for them in there, you will hit the search box, and that will pull up all the recruits that are still available because I did unsigned. And it sorted everybody by tackling and then by strength. So as you can see, the tackling is decreasing, and where there's a tie for tackling, then it ranks them by strength. This is your recruiting search tab. You can see players' names, their overall rating, which again, note is not the most important part when searching for recruits. And it'll give you their distance away from you and their current status. If it has multiple teams, it will say multiple. If it's just one team, you will see them there. To see who a player is considering, you can simply click their name, and it will list them out for you there. Also note that the order that this listed us in is not important. As you can see when I click these at the top, these are changing. They just give you a random list for that. They don't actually mean anything. When you want to actually recruit somebody, this is their recruiting profile, if you will. You have the ratings tab, which has all of their things. Couple things to note that are not necessarily cores that you won't see a lot about, but are important to pay attention to are GPA. That will determine how well your player will learn formations and develop his formation IQ. And work ethic is how well obviously how hard the player is going to work, and actually his ability to reach his potential. Under the formations tab for your players, you have how good they are for each of the formations. Since this is a linebacker, he has the defensive formations IQ. And then you have these other 2 tabs, recruit and history, which I'll touch on. The recruiting tab is where you will do any recruiting actions, or as it's called, putting in effort toward a recruit. Most of them have drop downs that you can select however much you want to do. And they change, but depending on what the action is. Some of them have 5, some of them have 7, some of them have 10. Couple notes here for the 2 starts and the scholarship. They are check mark, so you simply need to do that. Just put in a check mark. You can only do them once. You can only do 1 scholarship offer, 1 start of either freshman or sophomore. You cannot do both. And then the other one that's kind of weird is percent playing time. Once the player accepts that, you can also only do that 1 time. The rest of these you can keep doing. You can do 10 and 10 if you want, however many you want to do. You can do 2 more if you want. You can keep stacking them up as many times as you want. And anything you do in a recruiting cycle will process at the same time. What I mean when I say recruiting cycle is on your recruiting tab at the top. It will tell you when recruiting starts, recruiting signing starts, recruiting ends, show you how much budget you have and how many open scholarships you have. And a recruiting cycle in Gridiron Dynasty happens every 3 hours. So you will be able to hit recruits again every 3 hours. Except for there's an initial dead period. So for this particular world, recruiting started on Wednesday. I can hit recruits on Wednesday at 12:01 p.m. Eastern, but no actions will actually process, or I won't hear back from any recruits until Thursday, the 28th at 12:01 p.m. Eastern in this particular example. Next, on this tab also, you have booster gifts. You can use those at your own discretion. Not a lot of people do because the cons outweigh the pros. They're just a couple of options you have. You do get more options as you move up, and you can use them. And the reason I say we don't is because there's actually an AI controlled organization in Gridiron Dynasty that will have a very good chance of investigating your school if you use booster gifts, and if you are found guilty, it can affect things like your coaching reputation. Your school can be on postseason probation. You can lose scholarships. Players can get suspended. Sorts of things like that. Also to note, a recruit must have what's called a face-to-face visit, so pretty much anything here on this right side, and a scholarship offer in order to sign with your team. So if I were to give Michael Ellis one phone call and he were to turn green, he would not sign to me, even with a scholarship offer, if I did not have any kind of face-to-face offers, or face-to-face relationship. So generally the cheapest one is just to send him a scouting trip also. So the bare minimum to get a guy to sign with you would be a phone call, a scouting trip, and a scholarship offer. Also note here on the history, if it's highlighted, it kind of tells you here. If it's highlighted, that means it's going to process over the next cycle. If it's white, that means it's already processed. You can also tell because you have this withdrawal feature here. If you want to withdraw your actions, if you did it for the wrong, you decided not to hit the player, or you chose the wrong thing, you can withdraw it, and it will just refund you here. As you can see, I have 14,035. I withdraw it. It returns those funds back into my recruiting budget. So that's the basic scouting and how you find players. Once recruiting has started, you don't have the little check marks over here anymore. When you click, you'll just simply, to scout a guy or add him to your board, you'll just have to do some sort of recruiting action to get him on your board. Here's a look at the board, and once you're on it, there's a couple cool features you can do. I think I touched on the priority here. You can change those based on the player, and save that at the bottom. Another cool feature is if you want to see every, so I'm going to use defensive lineman. If I want to see every defensive lineman I have on my board, if I click the position, it will compare them all side by side here and give you their role ratings, give you all their values, and you can compare them that way. If you just want to compare a couple of guys, on the right side here is this dark arrow. You can click it next to each player you want to compare. Moves it down here to this recruit compare section. You click the fast forward looking button and it will compare those two players side by side for you. One other thing to note about recruiting, again, however far they are determines how much it costs. So Kenneth Reyes for me is 260 miles away. So to recruit him, his campus visit costs just over $1,653 for home visit, as opposed to, say, if I were going to go get Jack Schmidt, who is over 1,400 miles away from me. To recruit him, it costs over $2,000 for a campus visit and $1,600 for a home visit. So something to keep in mind when you're recruiting somebody. The booster gifts stay the same throughout, and as do some of the other options. One thing I will also note in this video is there was an awesome tool created by a user of Whatifsports. It's called the Answer Recruiting Tool. You can simply Google it if this is something you'd be interested in. And then it's this one here for the gdreports.com/theanswer/recruit. And you can just download the recruiting tool. On this page, he does have a really nice instructional video on how to use the Answer tool and what it does, and how it pulls the data. Essentially, what it does is it will pull everyone for you and save you a lot of time on scouting. And you can rank players based on specific values, distance away. You can sort them. There's a lot of features. It's a very helpful tool. Saves you a lot of time. And this tool will actually recruit for you as well. I don't personally use that, but if you want more help on that, it's probably in the video, or you can always just ask someone who does use Yatzer, which is a good amount of the community. I believe that covers everything I have for recruiting for you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me a site mail. Again, that's hook'emhorn7 on whatifsports.com. Otherwise, good luck.